the owners of the restaurants, and interview the owners of the real retail stores down there, and interview the people whose apartment buildings they live in. It's has a domino effect. So when Wall Street says, you know, we're laying go, when Lehman Brothers closes, you know, half the people get placed and half the people don't. The half the people who don't get placed are going to be unemployable, in my opinion, for the next 5 years. Because where are they going to go? What skills do they have? What is a bond trader going to do if there is no company? He's going to open a bar? I mean, what's a bond trader going to do? And it's a very, I think, frightening time. So let me leave you with what I think is sort of like the only upbeat part of this. I think we're coming to grips. I think we're coming to grips with the dimensions of the problem. And I think that's a start, because until you come to grips with the dimensions of the problem, you can't figure out how to fix the problem. So I think most of America is coming to grips with the dimensions of the problem. I think it's wrong to try and focus blame on an isolated industry or an isolated group of people, because I think everybody in this room and everybody I speak to and everybody in the United States is sort of partially to blame, because nobody saw it coming. Nobody predicted it. People gave out a lot of bad advice, and none of the people who were relying on the advice figured it out or questioned it, except people who were extremely conservative and took all of the money every week and never spent any money and put it in a savings account, and everybody laughed at them and everybody made fun of them. Those are the smartest people in the world today, because they got money, and all of the rich, fancy people who were, doing impressive trades, they're sitting there figuring out, how they're going to pay the dry cleaning bill for the $4,000 suit that they have no place to wear it to. So we come to grip with the dimensions of the problem. I think everybody needs to be a little bit more sympathetic and compassionate and understanding that there aren't a lot of bad people involved. There are, NATO is an exception, but there aren't a lot of bad people in the loop. I think there are some people who meant well, who screwed this up, and I think it's going to take everybody's sort of cooperation to deal with it. I think employers who I talk to, who I deal with, are finding ways to conserve overhead, reduce overhead, without necessarily throwing people overboard. There are practical solutions that you can do. You can cut costs. I think if you bring your employees in and say, here's the deal, I either close or everybody takes a 20% pay cut, that's the choice. I think most people vote for the pay cut. I think if you don't pay bonuses in a particular year because you can't, I think people will get it if you explain it to them properly. But I think more of the same is bad. I think more of the same will just lead to sort of economic disaster. And I also think that when the government regulators are reappointed, you really need to put good people in place. And part of the problem in getting good people to do these jobs is the government can't compete economically with the salaries and the incentives that the really best minds get in the private sector. So you get bright people, they're not necessarily the best people. So you have either people who've already made it and they're independently wealthy, and maybe that helps, or you get people who are idealistic but have never really held a real job. So I think you need a mix of both. And I think that our new president is not going to be able to fix this in 10 minutes. I think it's going to take a long time, even if he's a genius, even if he has great ideas, and even if he has the cooperation of both houses and the Senate and the majority of the American people. It's just not a broken faucet where all you need to do is put in a new faucet and then the water continues to pour. Our problem is nobody has turned off the faucet. Nobody wants to turn off the faucet. And when it comes time for you to take the shower, is not the time when you just want them to turn off the faucet. You want it to turn off, for the next person, not while you're in the shower. And I think as a result, we have developed sort of a selfish, me-first mindset in not just in the United States, but sort of in the world. And I think that's been one of the biggest problems that we have had. I don't think it's corruption. I don't think it's people who are cheating. I see the corruption more than anybody else. It's sort of the same as it's always been. There's a small segment of the world who always tries to get over on other people. It's not a revolving criminal justice system door. People are getting prosecuted. My fear is that this economic disaster is going to create the incentive for there to be bad prosecutions of people who don't deserve to be prosecuted because there's need for public officials to justify their existence, justify they're continuing to do their job, and people screaming and yelling. And then I think the media, and since there are a lot of public relations here, I think the media needs to sort of get their act together and recognize that for the vast majority of American people, it is interesting to discuss what we're discussing if you can do it in sound bites that make sense to a person who doesn't have an MBA or to a person who isn't the CEO. And the difficulty that the media has is they're more interested primarily in volume and attention than they are in substance. And as a result, you know, it's a bigger story, you know, if Paris Hilton buys a pink car than it is if there's a massacre in another country. It's always been that way. It'll probably always be that way. But I think more and more, I think media outlets are recognizing that they have sort of a responsibility to not just report the news accurately, but be selective in what they report so that there is a broad section. And the good news is the generation that we are now raising, and I'm not talking, my kids are already older. For those of you who have young kids, those of you who have grandchildren, that's really a fascinating generation. They're smarter than we are. They are intellectually gifted in the way that we will never be able to understand. You know, when my computer needs to be fixed, I don't call a tech guy. I have a 10-year-old grandson who can take it apart and put it back together. I don't know how to put it on. And at the end of the day, that generation, I think, is going to, in my opinion, help, because they have to be, you know, raised differently in many ways than maybe some of, not just the people in this room, but some of the way the people in this room thought about the next generation. It was always, you don't have to worry, there's always more. There's always going to be more, so you never have to say enough. And I think there has to be some sort of like, let's take a deep breath and sit down and talk to our kids and our grandchildren and explain the facts of life, not about sex, about, you know, how to do things right, how to get from point A to point B without screwing up, and how to act responsibly. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. I'm happy to take questions.
In spite of everything you said, I understand that you did an incredible job with one of your clients on 57th Street. Can you tell us how you did this? A little bit more detail?
No. Look, let me just say this. I think if you look at the public record of some of the work that I've done, I'm proud to say that I think I've done good work, and that there are some success stories in my professional past that I'm very proud of. I will tell you, when I talk to law schools and law students and lawyers and they ask that question, the thing that I do tell them is 80 hours a week is an easy week for me. There are no shortcuts. You know, I said once to people, you don't remember in 1974 when I started, I was 6'2". You know, the system sort of takes its toll on you, because my adversary is always the government. But the answer is, it's like any other business. There are people who I think get to the top of the profession that they're in, and rarely is it by luck. Rarely is it, you know, I have a close friend who says rule 1 is have good luck. Rule 2 is see rule 1. So having good luck and being blessed with, you know, luck is, I think, critical. But I also think that it's very, very hard work. And when you fight the government, you have to be very, very tough and tenacious, and recognize that your adversary has you outgunned, and they have infinite resources, and you have to adjust to it. But it's not, I don't think it would be, you know, if you were the guy, you wouldn't want me telling a room of people what your problems were and how I fixed it.
It's public, but we want to hear it from you.
All right. Yes.
Why do you think so little has been written regarding Madoff, the other people that were involved? You know, like the whole world seems to be blaming Bernie Madoff for running this entire scheme. There's got to be more than just one person behind this massive fraud.
Well, there has been a lot been written about other people who sort of were feeder funds that went into Madoff. In terms of how he ran his operation, I think eventually it's going to come out, and if there are other people who with knowledge assisted in the fraud, I think they're going to be prosecuted. I think it's inconceivable to me as a criminal lawyer that you can do something that long, that complicated without assistance. But I will also tell you that it's possible, because at the end of the day, there were two types of statements that the Madoff clients received. There was a brokerage statement that showed you your trades and your money, and that was